Oh, yeah. I want to add an addendum, just a little addendum. This is the most important thing I'm going to say tonight. The Democratic Party decided that Donald Trump is so dangerous to our country that they have to destroy democracy in order to save it from him. Well, they didn't really have an election at all this time. We don't know how Kamala Harris she never got a vote. President Trump went through an election and got a vote. The Democratic Party sued me across the country to make sure that I could not participate in this election. As soon as I endorsed President Trump, they began suing me to keep me off the ballot. And in this state, we won that case. I was on the ballot. We won the case in front of the Court of Appeals, and they said I get to take my name off the ballot, which was what I was trying to do. And then it went to the Supreme Court of Michigan, and a Democratic bench decided they were going to keep me on the ballot. They injured Donald Trump. What I'm saying to you and to everybody in Michigan is when you go into that voting booth, you're going to see my name there. And I'm telling you, do not vote for me. You need... You need to vote for President Trump and make America healthy again. That's the only way I'm going to get into Washington.
When have you ever heard a presidential candidate tell you to vote for someone else? That says something. That says something. We have just a few more minutes left. I just wanted to ask, clearly you've laid out so excellently why President Trump is the candidate that is here to reclaim this country. What is some advice to the voters beyond don't vote for him? And to tell everybody else, by the way, it's important. It's important because there are states that we do want to vote for you for. There are other states outside of Michigan that it would be great for people to vote for you.
I'm telling people all across the country to vote for Donald Trump.
Oh, okay. I stand corrected. So, but other than that, what other advice would you like to give these wonderful people here and everyone else watching at home? What is some advice as they go into the polls?
You go.
Well, that's helpful. Yeah.
That is helpful. Trump is telling the truth. That's exactly right. That is exactly right. Which is a stark contrast to Kamala Harris, who lies about every issue that she is asked about. And that really speaks to where I see opportunity. Help your friends and family and coworkers who may not have yet made up their minds, whether they're Michigan voters or voters in other states. Obviously, you know how important this state is in this election. And you know how much the Democrats will likely try to mess with this election, and how important it is that every one of our voices are heard. So I want to ask you to do two things. One is find those people in your lives that you can influence, that you can speak the truth to, that you can share what's on your heart, why you've made this choice to support President Trump so that he can come and fix what Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have broken. Listen to the concerns that they have. They may not like the way President Trump talks about certain issues, or they may have personality issues, but I encourage you to bring the conversation back to us, the people. For the first time in our lifetimes, we have this unique opportunity as voters not to just wonder, well, can I believe what they are saying or not? We actually have President Trump with 4 years and a record of success in the White House on every issue, domestic and foreign policy. And you have Kamala Harris, who has 4 years almost in the White House and a very clear record. I did an interview with one of your local TV stations yesterday or the day before. No, one of your local stations here in Detroit. And the anchor actually asked me a question that you may be asked, which is like, hey, he said, when President Trump was president, you had Vice President Pence, who didn't have the keys to the car. Vice President Pence wasn't the one making decisions, it was President Trump, which was true. And his question was, how can you say that Kamala Harris has a record of 4 years when she was just the vice president? Why is it different? Well, no, listen, we can look to what Kamala Harris herself and Joe Biden himself has said. He was on the show The View just a few days ago, and he said he had so much trust and confidence in Kamala Harris that he delegated every issue on domestic and foreign policy to Kamala Harris. Proof point number one. Proof point number two. Kamala Harris has said that she was the last person in the room advising Joe Biden on every single major decision that was made. Kamala Harris said this. Proof point number three. As vice president, she cast the most tie-breaking votes in the U.S. Senate in history to enact Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's policies that have caused so much harm and destruction to our lives, to our country, and to our prospects for peace and prosperity. So you can encourage your friends, don't listen necessarily to what I say or to what Bobby says. Look at the facts, look at the truth, and fundamentally answer that core question. Are your children, is your family better off today than they were 4 years ago? The answer to any objective person is clearly no. Have those conversations with those who you are connected with, who you care about, so that when you go to the polling place on election day, or when you send in your absentee ballot, or when you go in for early voting, and I encourage you to get your vote in early, because who knows what's going to happen on election day. You see a lot of people on the East Coast right now who are struggling because of this massive storm that just came through. What if the weather's bad on election day? What if roads are closed? We cannot place the future of our country on the weather on November 5th. I'm serious. I'm serious. Our voices must be heard in this election. So when you go to cast your vote, I want to encourage you to make a list of at least 10 people in your lives that you will be accountable for, to make sure that they also go out and cast their votes, and ask them to do the same.
Excellent. Bobby?
I don't have anything to add. That was brilliant, and I would say the same thing. I mean, I would add one other piece of evidence, which was that President or Vice President Harris's principal job was to manage the border. Let's remember that. And I'll add another thing. Vice President Harris was the one who kept coming out and telling us President Biden is fine cognitively. She gaslighted us for 3 years. And we need somebody who's going to tell us the truth. Oh, I was at the border at the beginning of, 18 months ago when I first started running. And I went to Yuma, the border at Yuma. I've been there many times, but I went to the border at Yuma and saw the big gap in the fence. There's 27 gaps. Why are those gaps in the wall? Those gaps are in the wall because, and there's construction material sitting behind them that we purchased years and years ago. And they're just sitting there rusting and rotting. Why? Because the day that President Biden got into office, he already had appointed her to run the border. He called an end to construction on the wall and left these 27 gaps. And I went to just one of them, and it was like being at the start of the Boston Marathon. There were people coming across, being brought in by the Sinaloa drug cartel in these shiny white buses, 55 people per bus, from all over the world, coming across our border. And the Biden administration has told the U.S. Border Patrol to end the catch and return policy and implement a catch and release policy. And they changed a lot of other policies. But the big thing is, in those areas where people are coming across, they need to finish the wall. Vice President Harris keeps blaming Congress. Every time she says that, it irritates me because I've spoken to the Border Patrol, and they've said she can shut this down overnight. She can do it herself. She doesn't need Congress, the same way that President Trump did it without Congress. She doesn't even need an executive order. She can just do policy changes and finish the wall. Yep. And We've seen a level of incompetency that is really unprecedented in a serious political candidate in our history, and a level of incompetency that's so high that she cannot defend her policies, and she cannot go on and do an unscripted interview with a hostile interviewer or even just an inquisitive one and survive. Oh, she's hiding. President Trump does 3 or 4 interviews a day. I've done since the beginning of this campaign the same 4, 5, 6, 7 interviews a day with hostile interviewers. We want a president who can defend their policies, who can outline an idealistic vision for this country, who can tell us what the future is going to look like and how they're going to get us there and encourage us and inspire us with that. You want a president who can go toe-to-toe with foreign leaders to advance America's interests around the globe and our vision for the globe. We're about to consider somebody seriously for President of the United States who cannot give an interview. And to me, it's shocking. I think my father would be dismayed, my uncle would be dismayed, because they love debate. They love conversation. They love the dialogue, and they knew that the best hope for America is in policies that were able to win, be annealed in the furnace of debate, and then float to the top in the marketplace of ideas. And we have a vice president who does not seem to have anything in her head except what the deep state tells her to say and to put there.